All right, class, today we're going to talk about loops. They're similar to the if statement in that they are a control structure, and the while loop, which is what we're going to talk about today, has some similar properties to the if statement, but with a few adjustments, and we're going to talk about those things now. So let's start out with saying we have an integer x equal to 5. And recall that an if statement allows us to control if something happens. So let us say if our integer x, as long as it is greater than 0, then we might do something. But the problem with this is that this only runs once. What if I need to do this thing multiple times as long as x is greater than 0? So what do? What if I need to run this multiple times? What do? Well, we can use a new keyword, and that is while. So while functions very similar to our if statement in that we check a Boolean condition. And we close that Boolean condition inside of parentheses. And the while loop is going to check that Boolean condition before it runs any code. The difference is that once we get to the end of this code, instead of moving on, it will go back and check the while statement again. And as long as this equals true, it will continue to do the code inside of that loop. As soon as this evaluates to false, so as soon as this is false, then it will skip the code block just like an if statement, find the last curly brace that is attached to the beginning, and it will move on in your program. Okay, so that's simply how it works. But there are some things that we need to be careful of. Because this keeps checking over and over again, it is possible to create infinite loops. Infinity is possible. Infinite loops are possible. This is where if we were running Java directly on our machines, we could actually break our machines because we could just run them into oblivion. So how do we avoid this? Avoid infinite loops. Okay? How do we avoid this? Well, we need to create a stopping condition. Now, there are many ways to create stopping conditions, and we're going to talk about two of them. The first one is what is called an incrementer. So an incrementer means that we're going to count. Remember those unary operations, the plus plus and the minus minus, when we were talking about variables? That's an incrementer. We can use that to our advantage. So let's say again that we have this example, while our x is, we'll use the same variable from above, is greater than 0. While that's true, we'll go ahead and do something in here. And then we'll take our x, which we recall started at 5, well, x minus minus to remove 1 from 5. And now our x is eventually going to count down to 0. So this is one way to stop. It will, at some point, as long as we know that x starts greater than 0, or actually it doesn't even have to start greater than 0. If it starts less than 0, this is automatically false and it skips. So we can always make sure that this will stop at some point. Now, if you put in an absolutely massive integer, didn't mean to subtract that, then this might run 2 billion times, but it will stop eventually. Another way is user control. And we can do that with this. So we can say while, and let's go ahead and say, we'll go ahead and say x again. While x is greater than 0, we could put this. We could say out.println enter an integer enter an integer greater than 0. So we prompt our user to do something, and we might want to add, if it's less than if it's less than a certain number, then it'll quit. And we can do then our scanner. Actually, we'll do this. X equals, X gets the value of our scan.nextInt. So then we can create a stopping condition that the user controls, and as soon as they input a negative number, then it will stop the while loop. And it will run as many times as we need. We could do some other thing inside of here. There are other ways to stop while loops, but these are the two most common ways that we are going to use for our algorithms in this course. The next one, we're going to talk about the scope of variables and why we can change some things inside to make this code even fancier. Okay, I'll see you guys in the next one.